writing about worldly in the weird and passed to listen again. The silence in the dark house was broken only by the distant grunting sounds of his en- enormous cousin, Dudley. It must be very late. Harry's eyes were itching with tiredness. Trace he'd finish this easy tomorrow night. He replaced the top of the ink bottle, pulled an old pillowcase from under his bed, put the torch, a history of magic, his essay, will and inside it, got out of bed and hid the lot under a looser floorboard under his bed. Then he stood up, stretched, and cracked the time on the luminous alarm clock on his beside table. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. Harry's stomach had a funny lot. He had been 13 years old without realizing it for a whole year. Yet another unusual thing about Harry was how little he looked forward to his birthday. He had never received a birthday card in his life. The Dursley had completely ignored his last two birthdays, and he had no reason to suppose they would remember this one. Harry walked across the dark room, past hovering large, empty cage, to the open window. He leaned on the sill, the cool night air pleasant on his face after a long time under the blankets. Had been absent for 2 nights now. Harry wasn't worried about her she'd been gone this long before, but he hoped she'd be back soon. She was the only living creature in his house who didn't blink at the sight of him. Harry, though still rather small and skinny for his age, had grown a few inches over the last year. His jet black hair, however, was just as it always had been, stubbornly untidy. Whatever he did to it, the eyes behind his glass were bright green, and on his forehead, clearly visible through his hair, was a thin scar shaped like a blot of lightning. Of all the unusual things about Harry, this scar was the most extraordinary of all. It was not, as a Dursley had pretended for 10 years, a survivor of the car crash that had killed Harry's parents, because Lily and James Potter had not died in a car crash. They had been murdered by the most feared dark wizard for 100 years, Lord Voldemort. Voldemort. Harry had escaped for the same attack with nothing more than a scar on his forehead, when Voldemort's curse, instead of killing him, had reborn upon its originator. Barely alive, Voldemort had fled, but Harry had become face to face with him since at Hogwarts. Remembering their last meeting as he stood at the dark window, Harry had to admit he was lucky even to have reached his dear 13th birthday. He scanned the starry sky for a sign of headwind. Hedwig perhaps is soaring back to him with a dead mouse dangling from her bag, expecting praise, gazing absently over the rooftop. It was a few seconds before Harry realized what he was seeing. Silhouetted against the golden moon, the growing large, every moment was large, strangely lucid creature, and its flapping in Harry's direction. He stood quite still, watching it sink low and lower. For a split second, he held his hand on the window ledge, wondering whether to slam it shut. But then the blizzard creature soared over one of the strip lamps of private drive, and Harry realized what it was left aside. Through the window soared three owls, two of them holding up their third, which appeared to be unconscious. They landed with a soft slump on Harry's bed, and the middle owl, which was large and grey, killed it right over and lay motionless. There was a large package tied to its legs. Harry recognized that unconscious owl at once. His name was Errol, and he belonged to the Weasley family. Harry dashed to the bed at once, untied the cords around Errol's legs, took off the parcel, and then carried Errol to Hedward's cage. Errol opened one breathy eye, gave a fearful hoot of thanks, and began to gulp some water. Harry turned it back to the remaining owls. One of them, the large snow female, was his own Hedwig. She too was carrying a parcel and looked extremely pleased with herself. She gave Harry an affluent nip with her beak as he removed her burden, then flew across the room to join Errol. Harry didn't recognize the third owl, a handsome, tawny one, but they knew at once where it had come from, because in addition to a third parcel, it was carrying a letter being the Hogwarts crest. When Harry received this owl of its post, it refilled its feathers importantly, stretched its wings, and took off through the window into the night. Harry sat down on his bed, grabbed Elora's package, ripped off the brown paper, and discovered a present wrapped into golden and the first ever birthday card. Fingers thumbnails slightly, he opened the envelope. Two pieces of paper fall out, a letter and a newspaper cutting. The cutting had clearly come to the wizarding newspaper of the Daily Prophet, because the people in the black and white picture were moving. Harry picked up the cutting, smoothed it out, and read. Ministry of Magic employs scope grand prize. Author with a wisely head of the Museum of Muggle Artifacts Office at the Ministry of Magic has won the annual Daily Photograph Grand Prize Galwain draw. Adelaide, Mr. Wisely told the Daily Prophet, we will be spending the gold on a summer holiday in Egypt, where our eldest son Bill worked as a breaker for Gingot's Wizarding Bank. The Weasley family will be spending a month in Egypt, returning for the start of the new school year at Hogwarts, which five of the Weasley children currently attend. Harry scanned the moving photograph and gained shivered across his face as he saw all nine of the Weasleys waving fearlessly at him. Standing in front of a large pyramid, plump little Mistress Emerus Weasley, tall building Mr. Weasley, sixth son of the daughter, all though the black and white picture didn't show it, with flaming red hair. Right in the middle of the picture was Ron, tall and giggling, with his pit red scrubbers on his shoulder and his arm around his little sister grinning. Harry couldn't think of anyone who deserved to win large pile of gold more than the Weasley, who were very nice and extremely poor. He picked up Ron's letter and unfoldable it. By কতটুকু হলো?
10 10